You're listening to 2025 The Final Drive, What You Need to Win with David Hayes. David has been providing financial advice for over 25 years and is the host of Your Money with David Hayes radio show and podcast. He has been featured in high-level publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Kiplinger's, Fox Business, Forbes, and more. Join your host as he talks about his book, 2025 The Final Drive, What You Need to Win, an Amazon daily bestseller. And now, here's David Hayes.
Hey there, welcome to episode number 19 of 2025 The Final Drive, What You Need to Know to Win. Of course, that is the metaphor on my football playing and coaching days where we talk about time is ticking, time is running out, the time to go is now. We're going to speak on this more today as we continue to remind everyone that the 2017 tax cuts that are set to expire at the end of 2025 give us a real unique opportunity to act now and save ourselves from taxes destroying our retirement accounts before they go up for good. All right, so this episode is going to be a reinforcement of things and how maybe the folks in the government aren't as big of dummies as what some people think. But let's start to go through the math. Currently, we are over $30 trillion in debt. Our IRS revenues are at all-time highs, which means we are bringing in more money now than we have ever brought in the history of the United States. So once again, we are still running these budget deficits, and we are getting proposed a budget that will also run significant deficits. What does that mean? That means we're spending more than we are bringing in. And remember, with nearly 90% of total revenues that are being brought in, pay for just four things: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the interest on our debt, it is disturbing to think about where we could go from a tax perspective in the future. Now, why would it be proposed, and this is where I want to kind of line things up for you, why would it be proposed to pass an even longer delay for required and minimum distributions when our government so desperately needs our money? The Secure Act 2, which passed through Congress, which proposed pushing required minimum distribution age to 75, is in the hands of the Senate, kind of going through its bird bath of sorts. But they did release what is one of the first drafts, and it looks like they are maybe going to stick with this idea of changing required distributions to age 70 that were 70 and a half, went to 72, and now potentially at 75. So let's first talk about how a budget is made. Remember, the president submits a budget request to Congress. Lawmakers release their own budget plans, and they set overall spending levels with a budget resolution. House and Senate subcommittees set funding for each program through the appropriations bill. House and Senate members come together to resolve their differences. That is kind of funny because rarely do they resolve any differences, but to pass a budget, they're going to have some compromise in their appropriation bill. And then the budget returns to the president for his signature before it becomes law. Now, the way this works, they look at the current situation we're in. They talk about proposed for next year, and then they usually will give a 10-year budget forecast. And that's where the Congressional Budget Office gets involved. But typically, budgets are looked at as next year, what it's going to look like, but then project what this will look like for the next 10 years. So here's the disturbing part. The next budget is projected to be about another $1 trillion underwater and will be for the next 10 years. So that's over $10 trillion, and they always miss it to the low side. They're never on the high side when it comes to budget deficits. At a glance, the Congressional Budget Office, they publish reports. They present its baseline projections of what the federal budget and the economy would look like in the current year and over the next 10 years if current laws governing taxes and spending generally remain unchanged. The report is a latest in a series that continues to come out over and over and over. And then normally the CBO will say, hey, based on what we're seeing, tax rates need to be this for us to pay for that. And it's always significantly higher and generally double what we're close to paying now. So that's been the narrative is, hey, we know where tax rates are today. Why not take advantage of those, knowing that even the Congressional Budget Office is saying that taxes need to double for simply to pay for the things we've already promised, which I mentioned. The promises, of course, are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the debt, and that it's only getting higher.
Securities are offered through JW Cole Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advice offered through CFCI and JW Cole Advisors. JW Cole Financial, JW Cole Advisors, and CFCI are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by David Hayes and his guests should not be construed as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. All economic and performance information is historical and is not indicative of future results. Investing may involve the risk of losing principal. Any tax advice on this show is not intended to be used by any person for the purpose of avoiding U.S. federal or state tax. Penalties may be imposed on such a person, and each listener should seek advice from their tax advisor or legal counsel on topics that arise from the show. David Hayes and his guests are not providing legal or tax advice. Nothing should be construed as solicitation or an offer to buy securities.